This video is going to be following my restoration of a John Deere X-485 garden tractor. I bought this about a week ago and I paid $1,600 for it, which was a really good price. And yes, I did have both eyes open when I did look at this tractor and bought it. I knew it had a number of issues, and I have repaired quite a few John Deere 455s. I now have two X-595, which are the mechanical front wheel drive tractors, and an X740. I was a John Deere tech for about 10 years, so this is now, I retired from John Deere, and this is pretty much my hobby. So I'm going to be detailing as I go through this. Right now I'm just going to walk around the tractor and show you my initial estimates as far as prices and what's going to be required when I start actually getting into repairing the tractor. The first thing is going to be the electrical side. The light switch, which is right here, did not work. Everything else looks like it is not new. The battery, I was told, was a new battery, which, again, I did look at it. That may be fairly new, but that is not a new battery. The hydraulic couplers has 4 hydraulic couplers, and the caps that were in the couplers had rotted away, and basically the couplers are now just pretty much a big ball of rust. The new couplers are going to be about $32.50 for each one, plus the caps, so that's going to be a pretty good chunk of money. The fuel filter looks like it's pretty new, which I was surprised when I checked the price on that. It's only about $13. So that isn't going to be that big of a shock to my wallet when I get that. But this is where the real problems are. Someone decided they wanted to use a toggle switch rather than the standard pull-up switch for the PTO, and so there are a bunch of splices and other things underneath, and that's going to be probably a pretty extensive repair when I get into that. The switch itself costs around $30. And this is the switch right here. Down here is the switch that was installed by whoever owned this tractor. So it does actually work. Right next to it, you see there's a little bit of a hole. It's missing the parking brake lever. So I have a feeling they couldn't have this toggle switch here with the parking brake lever. It would have covered it up. So easiest thing for them, they just took it out and didn't put it back in. So that's something that I would never have a tractor that didn't have a parking brake. Not a big, terribly expensive item, but this is. The instrument cluster, I turn it on and the lights work, which that's normal. The temperature gauge is pegged all the way to hot, and usually when that happens, it could be a bad sender or there's a short on the wire somewhere. So when I work on that, that's going to be a pretty good chore to figure out if I can fix it. And the fuel gauge on these tractors normally doesn't work. The fuel gauges are something that doesn't have a lot of travel, a lot of movement, and what happens is it's a D'Arsonval meter movement, and inside it just hasn't moved enough, and if there is some type of lubrication, it's dried out. a lot of times on these you'll see that the fuel gauge doesn't work, and I'll show you a simple way that you can test it and then hopefully repair it. Our meter does not work on the older X400 series and 500 series. This would be like an X485, X495, and then the X595 series is actually the diesel version, and that's the one that has the 2-wheel or 4-wheel drive. It's actually a mechanical front-wheel drive on those tractors. So that's something that a lot of these have this problem. When you get into the X700 series, I've got an X740. They went to a new type of instrument cluster, and that does not have seem to have any kind of problem with the gauges. To get to the instrument cluster, I'm going to have to remove the steering wheel. That's pretty simple if you know how to do it. Okay, there was water inside here, so you can see that the shaft there is all rusted. So the first thing I have to do is I remove the nut, and there is a washer. Next, I'm going to have to get the steering wheel off, and you'll see it's probably not going to be that big of an issue. It's missing one of the knobs here for the hydraulic lever, the top lever, and I checked that, and that's like about a $10 part for that little knob from John Deere. So that's where when you get into these little parts, they can be big money. The hydraulic couplers, you can see how rusted they are. The bottom lever, which is actually for the raising and lowering equipment, that was frozen, and I've already freed that up. If you have a tractor that has a mower, what they're going to do is use the rock shaft. The rock shaft is going to be controlled by the top lever. Since this lever is used a lot, these will always be free. The lower lever, since it's not used, again, it can lock up on you and freeze, and then you have to, sometimes you can get them free just using a little tapping and some penetrating oil. Sometimes you got to take them apart. It has a little toolbox, which I like that, but the lid is missing, so the toolbox is about a $20 item. This switch here is for your power port. This has a power port here so that you can plug anything you want in there that needs 12-volt power, and this is the switch for it. Okay, this switch, again, did not work, so that's something I'm going to have to check into and do some repair on it. The seat has a big scuff. Seat is not that bad. A new seat is going to be about $200 from John Deere, so that's something that I may or may not want to do. This is actually the seat switch, and it's hanging down. Basically, I was dragging that. It was hanging down below the frame. That should be connected to the seat, and it isn't connected, so that's something I'm going to have to remove. The fender deck, which is back here, it's the section where you're going to have your access to your fuel. That's your fuel tank. But to get the fender deck off, you're going to have to remove the seat, the slide mechanism, and you're also going to have to disconnect what's called the foot deck. The foot deck is where you put your feet right here, and you can see there's a crack here, and there are 4 bolts on here that I'm going to have to remove, basically just to loosen it up to get the fender deck off. To remove the foot deck, there are going to be some more bolts underneath there you'll need to remove, and I'll go through that process and show you what all is going to be required there. The seat switch I felt in here, and the blades are bent or broken, so it's going to need a new seat switch, which I would never sell a tractor if any of the safety equipment was not functioning. Okay, this handle is loose, so just looking at the tractor, I can tell that somebody has been trying to do some repairs on it. And that's something that it looks like somebody didn't know what they were doing in a lot of cases. Okay, another problem is up here there's a lever, which is your tilt on the steering wheel, and this is locked up, it won't move, and that's something that is, actually again quite common on these tractors. If you don't use it, there's like a metal gear and paw in there, and what it's going to do is actually just rust and freeze up. So I'll be taking the steering wheel off and taking this apart. To get the instrument cluster out, I am going to have to remove the dash cowling, and basically that's going to require that you pull the switches out, the light switch here, and on the other side the PTO switch, which I'm going to be working on. So I'm definitely going to be taking that all apart. So overall, the tractor's fair, but it does have, some issues. The mower deck doesn't look that bad. The big thing is the gauge wheels are not worn tremendously. There are grease zerks on the gauge wheels. So if somebody did some greasing, these are going to last for quite a while. The gauge wheels come with an assembly with some axles that for other tractors you would use new axles. This 62C deck, the axles are part of this adjusting shaft. So if you need to replace the axles, you're going to have to buy this shaft, which is about $30. You're going to have to buy the wheels, which are about $30. Ends up being you're going to have probably close to $70 per wheel. So this is something, if you have to do that, it's going to be expensive. The little adjusting lashes here, sometimes, they'll be broken. There's one broken on here. But the problem is these will actually be so worn, because this wheel is going to be flopping up and back, that the first 62C deck I actually had to replace those. And those are about $10 a piece. The springs, I don't know what those were, maybe $5. So when you start adding all the parts up, it gets to be kind of expensive. And here I am, I'm just looking at this, and this front wheel has, quite a bit of crack in there, dry rotting. So this thing is going to, I'm pretty sure, need new tires. I might have some spare ones for that, but I just happen to notice that. It's something that until now I didn't really realize, that the tires were in that bad a shape. So overall, like I say, this is, seems to be a decent tractor. It's just going to need, quite a bit of work. I don't see any major problems, except I guess the parking breaker, the switch works. That was wide open throttle. It doesn't, there's a problem with the linkage or something on, it doesn't have a carburetor. It's an electronic fuel injected tractor. So if there are problems with that, that could become very expensive very quickly. I noticed in the toolbox there's this little, it's actually called a support for the fuel tank. So someone had this fender deck off and couldn't figure out how to put this back on, and so they just didn't do it. So that's something I'll have to, again, I'm going to remove the fender deck and the foot deck, and that way I can get at more of the wiring easily and get everything pretty much back to where it should be as far as factory. The hood has some scrapes on it, and basically it's scraped the gel coat, the green paint, off, and the black underneath is actually the real plastic for the hood. So that's going to need a little work. It's missing in the front. You can see underneath the grill there, there's an open space. There's a bumper that goes in there, and it's just a little plastic cap piece, which I just checked the price this morning, and that's about $31 from John Deere. If you go anywhere online, Amazon or eBay, they're all selling it for $30. So John Deere has everybody handcuffed, and they got to sell it for the same price. So you might as well go to a dealer for a lot of this stuff. So this is my project, and what I plan on doing is, as I go through each of the steps, I'm going to make a separate video because this is going to be pretty much a lengthy process just to get the instrument cluster and the electrical system sorted out. I mean, that's going to be somewhat of a major event. I have repaired instrument clusters on the 425, 45, 55 tractors. And this instrument cluster is very similar, so I don't see any big problems. The one issue is the hour meter. There's no way you can fix that, and if you did try to replace it, chances are I've got the part number and I know what it is for the hour meter, but rather than even doing that, I just plan on buying an electromechanical hour meter. I've done that on 2 of my other tractors, and they work, and basically I put it behind one of the side shields, so you know, it's a cheap, easy fix. And the new instrument cluster would cost $1,200, and some dealers, or you know, on eBay or other places, might even charge more. I just checked the price yesterday, and they're about $1,200. So that is a very expensive item to replace. For a lot of people, that would be the difference between, well, buying a tractor and maybe I don't want to buy it. So this is just going to be kind of a tutorial on how to repair a lot of things, not specifically just this tractor. The electrical side is something, I'm a retired electrical engineer, and I was a John Deere tech for about 10 years. So electrical is something I enjoy, and troubleshooting is something I'm very good at. So if you want to follow these videos, I'll be putting, you know, probably half a dozen different videos and breaking them up into smaller pieces, so that, you know, if you want to find out about the electrical system, the battery, different things like that, I'll try to do that in separate videos. So this is just an introduction, and I'll start repairing it and start posting videos. See you later. Bye.